Yeah, so today we're talking about layout and design. And, Jaji and I were talking a little bit of packaging, which has to do with design and layout as well. And Heidi is out this week. I really wish she were here. Obviously, she's doing some international travel. Jaji was doing international travel.
Yeah.
Everybody has to, do their part. So she's away for this week and next week. Luckily, we got Rian Stone to come in and talk about layout and design. He does his layout and design, has a background in graphic design and marketing as well. So I just thought it would be valuable to have him on here to co-host and discuss this stuff since he's doing it regularly. I'm doing it regularly. Heidi is doing it regularly now as well. She's preparing her second book for release. Jaji, what have you been working on? What have you made progress on while we wait for Ryan to come back?
I finished almost finished. I finished a rough draft of the book I was working on before I went on my trip, and the trip was directly related to the book. So now I'm going through the entire book, which is quite long, and making subtle changes based on things I saw on my trip, and also just polishing and rewriting. The last several chapters were rough rather than done. But I'm about a little over halfway through. So I'm really excited that I might actually get through this in the next week. I'd like to get through this in the next week to week and a half and get on to the next project. So, which is the second book in this little series that I'm doing that I went to travel to research. So I'm pretty excited at the progress I'm making.
Very nice. Yeah. For me, because I'm trying to put out stuff that's like in a paperback or hardback ebook or audio book, sometimes in video, I want people to know that thing is affiliated with the other thing, if they've seen it somewhere else. So having those consistent design components is important for me. Ryan, it already shows you in as a speaker. You just popped right up on stage. Are you live now?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
I feel like such a boomer. Sorry, guys, for ruining this thing so far. Please continue. I don't want to interrupt.
No, it's all good. You're here now. You give us an introduction to you.
Oh, man, I had a whole spiel, too. It was great.
Well, you get to second take. Take two.
Yeah, other than being the villain, I mean, originally in the early 2000s, I went to university for graphic design and desktop publishing. And we were talking about this offline, how I was just at the tail end of like the lithography when the computers first started kicking into graphic designing and that. Didn't end up working out, so I joined the military where as a communicator, which really helped for speaking that. And then afterwards kind of moved on to, and if you can believe this of all spaces, like the red pilled space, because at the time I was having some personal issues, mostly with the military thing. It's a whole story. It's not really worth it. But over the years, all of these skill sets did what I think Scott Adams calls the stack or something like that, where every one of your skills from each one of those carries on. And so it started with nonfiction books, of which I have, I think, 4, doing and everything from soup to nuts. That means writing it, getting your own editor, doing the typography choices, the desktop publishing, the cover design, everything. And then after those 4, I realized in the space that I had expertise in, I had nothing more to say. So I've started moving on to fiction, and I'm starting my 3rd one right now. I finished 2. First one is Dog Walker, kind of a contemporary literary fiction, romantic kind of story from a guy perspective. And then Softbone, the newest one, Cyberpunk, which I'm due, apparently, Marshall McLuhan's grandson. I don't know if you guys know the medium is the message guy, but he's going to have me on his radio station this weekend to read out a chapter live. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool.
But yeah, and then from the rest of it, I mean, it's just, thank God, 30 years before that graphic design stuff started to come in handy.
That's
and as far as expertise, it's just like, you just do the things, actually sell books. Like I don't want to toot my own horn. I'm not the greatest author. Like I'm no Sanderson, but like I'm good. I make a living. This is my full-time job. So
that's great.
Thank you.
So I thought for today's, I'd like to say just a little bit about the different types of publishing, because I think that fits in. And then I'm going to kind of, mainly listen because you guys have really hands-on experience in this. And mine, I tend to have my typesetting done by typesetters. So I have a little bit less of the layout design. I'm here, and we'll contribute as appropriate. But I really want to kind of showcase you guys because I found what you guys were saying when we were talking about this really fascinating. So I just want to say really briefly that there's three main types of publishing right now. One of them is the traditional way, one of them is small press, and one of them is indie. And they all have strengths and weaknesses. So the big strength of traditional is that they get your books in the bookshelf in stores. And there's a lot of people who won't ever see your book otherwise. So there's a big advantage to having your books in bookstores. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to sell well. It doesn't necessarily mean a lot of other things. But the other advantage is you don't have to do anything, any of what we're about to talk about today. They do it all for you. The downside of traditional publishing is one, it can take a long, long time to get picked up by a traditional publisher. You have to submit. They can take a year or two to answer you. I mean, it's a long haul. It took me 6 or 7 years from when I started submitting to when I got picked up. The other downside is that you don't have any control. All the stuff we're about to talk about, you have no control over it. If you don't like what they do, there's nothing you can do. So that's traditional publishing. Small press is kind of half and half. They don't have much reach. They don't necessarily get you into a bookstore, though sometimes they do. Sometimes they can get you in the library system like Overdrive. But often it's just that someone else is doing part of the work for you. But that can make a big difference if you're not that good at this kind of stuff. So the upside is they're probably easier to get into than one of the real big ones. And the downside is you lose some control and you still have to query and sometimes don't get picked up. And then indie, you're doing everything yourself or everything that you don't hire someone specifically to do. Like you can hire an editor or you can hire a typesetter. So the downside is you're doing a lot of work and getting your notice out there is entirely on you. And the upside is that you get to control what you're doing. So you get to make choices that you feel really work for what you're doing. So that's my spiel about publishing. And I turn it back over to you guys.
Yeah, that's cool. And I feel like that's probably one of the most relevant ways of looking at it. Not only because of, your background where you came from in traditional publishing, but also just because that's the lay of the land as it is today. And particularly, talking about indie as a scene, as opposed to self-publishing as the mechanism, which, in the past had a stigma to it, which I think, for any of us here that we don't observe any of that at this point, I think we're all we've seen enough success in the indie sphere side of things that it's not realistic when you are comparing real home runs of like authors that compared to absolute strikeouts from huge publishing firms that you also know.
You bring up a good point, though, and I should mention vanity press is the other type of printing.
Sure, yeah.
And vanity press is where you're paying somebody to print you, which is very different from indie. In indie, you're working with someplace like Ingram or Kobo or Amazon, and you're listing either for free or Ingram sometimes has a small fee for listing. In vanity press, you're paying out a couple $1,000s to somebody who's then producing a book for you. And that's the thing that originally had the bad, because a lot of times people who went that way were people who, really couldn't get anybody to look at their stuff otherwise. And it often just wasn't that good. And that's what that's how indie got a bad name, even though there's a lot of really good quality indie stuff out there now. So I just thought I should mention that one too. And I had forgotten.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's good. there was one thing I wanted to do. Robin, you're hanging out. How has your progress been since last month when we did the workshop? If you were there.
Hello.
Hey, hello.
Hello. I just had to find unmute. Well, let's see. So I'm really happy to be here today because for me, this is like 100% learning curve. This is what I need right now because, as many of you know, I finished my first book and I'm choosing the small press route for that. And I am now querying small presses that deal exactly with what I'm with my product, which is sci-fi, near fiction, non-dystopia. And I'm sending one query a week, and hopefully, next year I will be picked up. So that's that. And with my new novella, it's shorter than Mission Infinity. I am planning to do what you're all talking about now. I am more than halfway done with my first draft. It'll go to test readers. It'll get rewritten. It'll go to my editor, and then it'll be ready. So we're talking probably June of next year. And yeah, and not my problem, but my thing is all of this all of this is new to me. So I plan to sort of like hang back and listen and get as much as I can today.
Well, it's never too early to start thinking about design, aesthetics, gathering together assets or ideas that you want to start to toss together.
I already have a question. Okay. Michael, you said, I think it was you, or maybe it was Rian, was talking about sort of consistency in design. Does this also include if you're multi-genre and one of your novels, the first one is sci-fi, the second one is fiction based in a historical setting. See how I didn't say historical fiction this time? So I have two very different products. And I don't know that applies to me or not. Not that I can do a book cover anyway, but when I have to reach out to somebody, what do I say?
Reaching out for a designer. Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. No, for sure.
If you're looking to hire a designer, and this is going to be weird because I'm not approaching it the way you think I should, but it's the way you're going to find out. First thing you got to find out is can they actually finish the job? Because as a former designer, most designers have the worst work ethic ever. They complain a lot about people using AI, but when you prompt AI, it actually delivers. So that's the one thing. Always make sure you get references from other people. And the big thing to do is get your contract in place. And if you know nothing else about contract, you very explicitly state what you expect, when they have to deliver it, and set your payments up so that way, because if you end up paying them the full amount and they're only halfway finished, if you're getting a flaky designer, that's when it's going to happen. Now, there's however you want to work, that's fine. As far as what you're trying to accomplish with a cover, you don't want to think of, do I like this? Do I think this is wonderful? It's mainly and it's like the whole part of writing a book. You're trying to solve problems. And the cover of your book solves a few problems. One, it tells people what they're in for. So when they look at the cover of your book, they should have at least some idea of what your book is about. And a small aside from this, when I did one of mine, the big decision you're going to have to make is if you want to write a fiction, like a romance type book, you can choose a cover that's what they call Memphis corporate. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. They kind of have that weird two-dimensional African creative art style to it. It's generally seen as a negative, but here's the thing. When you put that out there, you are saying, hey, this is a lot like those, the Colleen Hoover or whatever other books you might buy, but you're now competing with all of them. And so your other choice could be, well, I want something different. Now, if you pull up The Dog Walker by R. Stone, you'll see the difference there. That gives you a different set of problems where you have to let the person know what's in the book by the cover, and they don't get to carry over those expectations from otherwise. And again, this is a choice you have to make. If you have already an inbuilt audience that likes your work, you can get away with stuff that separates from the crowd. which offers you the benefit of not having to compete with all those people. But at the same time, if you're like, nobody knows who you are, then you have to kind of lead with the pack. Like, I'm just like the other girls. You know what I mean? As far as the individual creative decisions, they generally don't matter because, again, the second thing you have to accomplish with your book cover is you want to grab the user's attention for 0.2 of a second. That's it. In the C, like, one thing you should do when you get your comprehensives from your designer is you go into the Amazon bookstore or wherever your books are going to be. You want to get every cover in the top 100 there. And you put yours into a random spot and you find out how long does it take you to find your book in amidst all these other ones. And you have to have it like a 1 inch by 1 inch thumbnail instead of a bunch of thumbnails, just like an old contact sheet. Because especially if they don't know who you are, sometimes that 0.2 of a second to grab somebody's attention is what you're going to need to sell it. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be something you like. In fact, picking things you don't necessarily like could be a good thing because then you're not clouded by your own bias. And then as far as the individual choices you want them to make, I don't want to say they don't matter because they do, but it should be a tertiary concern to those other ones. And then once you've achieved those things, the third thing you want to worry about is aesthetics. Because in the red pill space where a lot of guys have books, some people make books that, I think there's one example. It's a really horrible one, but it was like Why Women Deserve Less. Like, you're not going to ever read that on a subway in front of strangers. People look at you like you got 3 heads. So you have to think, where is the person reading my book? And so if they're reading it at home by themselves, you can put whatever onto it. Romance novels, big on this. If you notice, most covers now, it's like a set of handcuffs or like a feather duster or something like that. They don't have the old pictures of Fabio with a bulge hanging out of his pants anymore because it's embarrassing to read that at the office. And so once you think about all these things, you start to treat it more the way a cobbler would treat shoes as opposed to the way an artist would think, oh, this symbolizes this. It's like, no. The end user needs to have a good reading experience, and it all starts with this. It's your advertisement. It's there. And if you've done it right, you get a book cover that's compelling enough, and I don't want to say inoffensive, but I can't think of a better word, inoffensive enough that other people would actually be curious. Hey, what's that you're reading? If you're doing that ideally. Now, when you talk to a designer, if they don't address any of this and they focus on aesthetics or like some hyper, like, oh, my elf needs to have proper ears, and like they're hyper focusing on the details that don't matter, I would actually take a long pause on that one because they're trying to treat it like their own personal portfolio and not you creating packaging for your book. Because that's what it is. Does that help? I know I got a little rambly at the end.
Yeah, actually, I had to go out and come back in. I didn't hear a little bit of it, but what I heard was very, very helpful. Especially the getting the contract, the making sure that the person knows what they're doing and they knows what they're doing in terms of what you need for your book. So yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Just want to kind of agree with him there and add. It's important to remember that your cover is an advertisement. It's not an illustration of your work. So just to use a really simple example, my first book in my current YA series, my character does not have a regular broom that she flies around on as a little sorceress, but we put a regular broom on the cover because the idea on the cover is to get across to the reader that this is a little girl who's a sorceress and not the details of the background, which might have been confusing or misled the reader to think it was a steampunk. Or you want to do is say, this is the kind of thing, if you enjoy this image, this is the kind of feeling you're going to get when you read this story, so that you're pulling in people who are going to enjoy it when they read it.
And it's more important too, not even so much that you want the people who like it to buy it, is that if you give somebody unrealistic or expectations that aren't being met, there's going to be your negative reviews, and everybody hates people talking crap about their book. And if they do, you at least want them to talk crap about it by a reason that it should be talked crap about. Maybe your prose isn't good enough, but I was expecting this and I received that. Like, that's negativity and bad press that you just don't need. And it's more of a symbol of the unprofessionalism of your design than anything. So yeah,
that's
100%.
what happened with my first book, which was came out from Tor. It had a beautiful cover, and people still compliment me on it. but it was a cover that was kind of in key. You're talking about going with the crowd. It kind of reminded one of something like The Time Traveler's Wife, which was really popular then. But the book inside was nothing like that. So it wasn't, it both wasn't drawing the readers who would enjoy it, and it was both drawing readers who might not like it, and it was keeping away readers who enjoyed it. And I have a review someone wrote where they said what they thought the book was, so they hadn't read it, and then what it was when they did read it. And it perfectly defined both what the cover looked like and the actual story. So, which I love that review because it kind of, supports the idea that this was not the right cover for the book. And it was beautiful, but it really kind of lets you know that you don't just want something pleasant to the eye. You really want something that meets the need of the work.
Like I've seen some good covers that use MS Paint, like the MS Paint, literally. My friend Aaron Clary, who's about 14 books in, he is kind of known for like being a minimalist in that. So when he has like the bare bones MS Paint Comic Sans cover on his thing, it actually really works for him because you know exactly what you're expecting from it. Which I always use that as my example of like aesthetics don't matter as much as you think.
Yeah, that's fair. I wanted to ask you a question about, you just put out a book, but what's in the hopper, or maybe go down a little bit of what you're thinking about it in terms of design for a new project, or maybe even do a recap of how you went about things for Softbone.
I'm going to start just at the new fiction one. Yeah, we'll start there.
You do whatever you'd like. I particularly think the cover for Softbone is really strong. But whatever you feel like.
Gotcha. Okay. So when I was switching over to fiction, I wrote Dog Walker. It took me about 3-4 months. And then right afterwards, I was in the writing mood. So I did Softbone, and again, 3-4 months. So I had them both finished, but I'm like, I can't release two at the same time. So I released Dog Walker in February and held off till August for Softbone. Now, when I wrote it, I was kind of thinking like, what do I want to attach with that? I looked at it's cyberpunk. So I'm like, let's look at what cyberpunk has going on right now in the store. 20 of them is AI generated literary RPGs, which if you've never heard of this, it's like a tabletop RPG, choose your own adventure book, minus the choosing. So, and they all had the exact same, when you think of fantasy sci-fi, it's usually like a character doing something with a monster behind them, and they're all in that same blue and black color. The text is super hard to read at small sizes, and everybody's got that. So I'm like, okay, I don't want that. And then I realized when I was writing it, a lot of the I don't know how else to call it. So I'm gonna call it a vibe. Like the feelings you get from it, I wanted it to be more of like a 1960s pulp or a 1970s sci-fi, but it's got like a 1980s RoboCop satirical take on it. And so when I went to the cover design, I'm like, how can I do that? So I took like old 1960s pulp artists, and these ones are actually AI generated, which I know is a controversial thing, but I do them as assets. So I'm like, build me the 1960s ones. And then I found, after like a million different examples, put those together in a way that I could see fit, the montage character. It's a very standard design. And then I look at the 70s sci-fi, and a lot of them, because printing technology wasn't as good as it was in the 80s and 90s once we started having computer print houses, is that they couldn't do any bleeding. Not really, not well. So what you would often get is like a solid cover book, and then they would have a picture inside of it. And so I'm like, I'm going to take that and add it to this as well. So when people remember like old Asimovs or, reading the old Dunes, it'll have a faint memory of that as well. So it kind of sets up expectations for coming in. And then the 80s thing where I kind of give it like a VHS cover of like the B movies you'd see there, because it's not meant to be taken super seriously. It's a satirical piece. Cyberpunk is just the setting. And so then I put these together, and I have to think about marketing the whole time too. So while I'm doing this, one of the ways that I set up my marketing funnel, my middle of the funnel stuff is talking about the nuts and bolts, same as this here. So I'll show like, hey, this is how my cover design went for this week. And it starts off with, you do what are called comprehensives. Think of those like in a contact sheet where you put a negative, like you have those strips of negatives on the one sheet of paper and you look at them with a little eyeglass. So I set up 20 different designs of how I think the cover would look. No ideas off limits. And then I go through the 20 and I compare them against what I said before, how does it look big? How does it look small? Does it, capture the whatever? And then out of those 20, you narrow it down to 5. And those 5, you expand those to 20 more variations on the theme of those. So you end up with about 100 comprehensives. And then you narrow that down to another 3. Which 3 are the best ones to create that? And then you have your 3 comprehensives, and I dictate the whole process to everybody. They get to read it on the emails, lets them feel like they're a part of the process. They're in on it, and they get to have their opinions. And sometimes their opinions get me thinking about something I hadn't thought. And then from there, you narrow it down to your final one, and then you build your final book comprehensive, and then you set it up for printing. And I had a whole Substack thing on that as well, as like, how do you do your layout for a cover? And that's a very technical thing, and I don't know if we're ready for that yet. I can go there if you want, though. And then build all that together. Sorry, what did you say?
It's not off limits. I'll be honest with you. I think
it's more so I don't want to take all the time.
Well, no, I mean, this is a conversation in general, and I would say that the technical information that you're putting out here is all stuff that people need to be concerned with if they're going to design themselves, or if they're going to understand what is going on from a good designer who would put together their cover, and maybe to think about how that process works, how to time that process, things like that. So
gotcha.
I agree. Just go to town.
Now, I will say, for all of this, marketing, as much as people think finish your book, then start marketing it, you should be doing them in tandem. So this whole time, everything I'm working on, like as I'm finishing chapters, sending them to the editor, I'm also sending them out as excerpts. I have no problem sending. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want them to read the book. I don't want spoilers. I'm like, nobody cares about that. It's, you see YouTube, tons of previews of clips, all the fancy parts of every TV show you watch. You still watch the show, because the full experience is not just a series of clips you can put together. So I'm not worried about that stuff. I give away probably about half the book away for free, just in excerpts, before it even comes out to that. Same thing with the cover. People see exactly where the cover is going. They see why I make the choices exactly the way they are. Like, if you notice, for Softbone, it's green, that army olive green, because nobody uses that color. So it stands out. The word Softbone is in this neon lime color with like pink. Again, that's there for that 0.2 of a second. The images on the front with the 1960s pulp mixed with the 1970s design and the 1980s aesthetic, it's very unique on there. Now, that's because I have my own audience. I have like an email list of about 6,500 people. So I can take those kind of risks. If I had a smaller one, like my first book called Fuck Files was, I only had about 1,000. So there I had to give it a more generic look that fit in more with other people, so they'd be willing to take a chance on. But again, I have no problem telling everybody exactly how it's made. It's like Penn and Teller. I'll show you exactly how the magic trick works. You're still going to get entertained. And then people would buy it. People leave their reviews, and good reviews, I'd post them up. It's like, look, he thinks it's good. This is great. If somebody thinks it's bad, I think the best thing I could find while I'm doing all of this and designing your cover and doing your templates and that, if somebody rants about how much they hate you or they hate your book in an unhinged way, it's the best marketing in the world. Like, to date, I still have this guy, George Bruno, who yells. He calls me all kinds of slurs. I made it an advertisement. It's perfect. But you notice here, it's like, is this the best book ever written? It's not really a factor for me. I've seen so many people with horrible books. Like, and I'm not saying she's bad, but Colleen Hoover, it was good, serviceable, but it's not like Hemingway. Meanwhile, she's made $1 billion, so she doesn't care. Taught me something. So now that I got all of this stuff together, I put it out. The marketing run goes for that first month. I have the audiobook already recorded and ready to go, but I find it's always best to save that for 3 months, because for Amazon, where I do my releases, and Kobo, there's always a 3-month bubble where you get about half of your sales over the lifetime. And then once you hit that 3-month mark, you release the audiobook, and it'll give you a second wave, which I find works out better in the long run than just releasing them both at the same time. But I don't notice the difference between hardcover, paperback, Kindle. Those I just put out right away because it doesn't really matter. The people that really like you want hardcovers. The people that don't know you will probably get Kindle. And the people who know you but aren't like voracious readers will probably get the paperback. And it works out about that way. For sales, 60% of your is Kindle, 40% is paper and hardcover. And then of that, that's about 40% of your total sales, and the last 60% are all audiobooks. So it's another thing. If you've never done an audiobook for your book, you're leaving over half the money on the table that you should be earning. And it's not my place to tell people how to enjoy the book. Maybe I don't want to read it, but I really like you and I really like this idea. Like, oh, fine, I'll read it for you. So now that I've got all of this stuff kind of churning and it's all going at the same time, I have to think, like, I set this one up. So like, I've always wanted to do a sequel. So let's try a sequel. So when I'm setting little cliffhangers up, I kind of have to plan the second book as the first one is finishing up. Now that's the part I'm in right now. Right now I'm finishing off the second draft of it, which gives me a whole other set of complications now, because now I have to promote the crap out of the first book, because the second book, if they don't know the first book, they're less likely to even want the second book. So I need the second book to do as well as possible, or the first book to do as well as possible. And while I'm doing the second book, try to build as much hype for the first as possible, and then see if it carries over. Now this will be new, so it's going to be some A/B testing on my part, and that's the final thing I want to lead with on this. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody, because nobody knows what they're doing. Everything with marketing is A/B testing. And anytime somebody says, I have the answer, I have the solution, 15 ways to get your book sold, number 3 will surprise you, drink 8 glasses of water, don't listen to them. They don't know. And as soon as they do find out, everybody floods to it. It's like 6-year-olds playing soccer. They'll just kick that ball and then they'll chase it. And then the whole thing changes, because customers change their preferences as marketing changes. Things become saturated, people move on. So you've always got to be A/B testing. And if you'll notice,
I'm glad you put that last piece in there, because about the ground shifting, because that's the whole thing. Like, the ad that you run that you find success with is not going to be the ad that you're going to continue to run into the future. It can't. Eventually the audience gets fatigued and you have to continue to reintroduce new approaches to your audience with ads too.
Yeah, and you never know. And here, one thing I will say this for everybody I've ever met who does writing is they're always insecure about marketing, and they play it off as if like they're above it. Like, oh, I'm not a sleazy snake oil salesman. It's like, no. Don't be scared. If you don't like your work, nobody else is going to like your work. You need to talk about it. Well, maybe I'm a little too, no, you're not too hype. I'll give you an example. Sports drink. I don't know if you've ever heard of these guys. They went viral and they've been selling like hotcakes, and they had the weirdest marketing I never would have heard of. Somebody was making fun of their drink and they said, I'm going to swear here, shut up, you stupid bitch. And for some reason that went viral. No idea why. They didn't even know why. He was like, I was just drunk and sent it out, and everybody liked it. I guess that moment of honesty is everybody was just happy to see a nag put in her place or something. I don't even know. But he was smart enough to know, like, this works. So they leaned in on it. Could be that. It could be watching somebody have an unhinged rant on TikTok about you as a person. You can put that on there too. Maybe somebody doxes you. You want to use a pen name. That might be it too. A lot of guys have been doxed, and then people find out he's not some nerd in a basement, but he's like an attractive man or something like that, and they work with it. So you just really have to, it's going to be part luck, part working with what you're given, and you can't have any squeamishness. And I'll tell you right now, if you are too insecure or too proud to market your own work in an absolutely shameless way, go with TradPub, let them do it for you, because you're just not going to make it in indie. You're not going to make it by just standing there with a photo of you holding your book saying, hey, read this, it's great. Nobody gives a shit at all. And yeah, it does feel a little Barnum and Bailey, but that's where we're at now. If you wanted to be an indie writer, I want to have full control over my stuff. I want people from the type choice I use in the book, from the cover design to how easy I find it to read. Every choice I make in here is mine. And the price that I pay for that level of control and quality, I would argue, is that I also have to be the guy who's selling it. I think I rambled a bit much there. But yeah, and that's the hardest part to kind of get used to, is that the writing itself is almost the secondary consideration. Because you can have the best written book on earth, and if nobody knows who you are, nobody cares. But you can have the worst book on earth, but if everybody knows who you are, you're at least making a sale, which is a step up. The hardest part about being an author is getting people to learn your name.
In the book sales side of things, yeah.
Yeah. And if nobody's buying it, then why are you writing it? Well, I'm writing it for me. Well, that's great. Then why'd you publish it?
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm with all of that, because that's the same thing with musicians too. It's like, well, I could play at home for free. I didn't have to do all this work to come out here. Let's go back a little bit and get into maybe the design weeds of formats and the differences. maybe thinking about how assets are affected. Like, for example, ebooks, audiobooks, you just have that front cover. One is vertical and the other is square. But when you're dealing with like paperbacks and hardbacks, then all of a sudden you need stuff to wrap around. The design elements that go into that. How do you plan for those sorts of things? I know how I do it. I have kind of stripped down to the basics to where I have as few elements as possible. That way everything is kind of moldable and shiftable as I'm changing orientations and formats and stuff. But maybe you think of things differently.
Oh, a little differently. Like I get what you're saying, where you want to set like focal paths and focal points. I think that's what you're kind of getting at. The idea of when you're looking at an image, your eye will automatically draw to the most contrasting thing on there. And then the way your eye follows the page is called a focal path. So you want to set that up. Normally, if you're a Western audience, it's the same as reading a book. It's like a reverse Z shape. And you can do that. Again, there's no real rule to it, but you're just aware of how people naturally read across a page. And you can play with that or you can work with that. It's up to you. The part that I love is that every company that has your book will tell you exactly how to format your thing to fit within printing guidelines and whatever. And I'm surprised how few people are TFM. Like you go to Amazon, if you want to do a Kindle book, you're like Kindle specifications. They actually have an app you can start. You type in how many pages is your book? Are you using the high quality paper or the cream paper? What's the dimensions? Do you want a 5x8, like a nice little reading one? Do you want a 7x4, one of those travel ones? Do you want a 6x9? I think they're called trade paperbacks. And you can get into why you do one or the other. It's not really important here, but they tell you exactly what you need. And then you'll just need a proper piece of layout software. In my case, I use Inkscape, which is a vector drawing program, but it works just fine as this. You set up your guides, your margins properly, your 0.125 inch bleed, your 0.125 inch margin. You set up your spine the way you want it. You set up your layout like there. And as long as you stick to their specifications, your cover will always work. Same thing. And then and then when you're doing it, you also kind of have to keep in mind, like you said, for Kindle, I think it's 2560 by 2000 as your dimensions. So when you have your assets done, you're going to have to shift things around a bit, which is always good to make it as modular as possible. You don't want to have just like a guy paint a solid thing in that exact dimension you need, and then you're done because it won't work. So yeah, there's that. You're going to have a square version for your audiobook. If you want to have a hardcover as a different size, so normally like 6x9 for nonfiction hardcovers, I find is a good size. With hardcovers, you're also going to have that extra 1.5 inches because they fold the hardcover page behind the back in the book. I can't remember what the term is called off the top of my head.
The laminate.
Thank you. Yeah, so you have to make all these accountings for it. So what you really have to do is look at your book, like what formats do I want to release it on? What sizes do I want to work with? I always like 5x8 because it fits in somebody's hand. I always think about, because if you get the 6x9s that are like the default right now, nobody can hold that in their hand, one-handed. So they're never reading it anywhere unless they can sit down at a table and hold it with their two hands. I don't like that. But so you look at all these different things. You go to Amazon, you go to Kobo, you go to whoever you're getting your designs from, you find their design specs and you just follow it to the letter. It's like accounting. And then once you get that there, you start working on the interior stuff, the desktop publishing. Like I know everybody here is a good enough author. You know how to do front matter, which I'm not the greatest at, but, and then for designing the inside, I'm not going to talk about type yet, but the easiest thing you can do instead of knowing like what's the industry standard for cropping or for margins or whatever, just take a book that you like and you found very easy to read and just take a measure of everything and copy it. Do they have a 1/2 inch border? Well, use a 1/2 inch border. Is their gutter like 0.75? Then do 0.75. And then once you get that, you're just copying off of somebody who's done it right. You don't have to think about it too much. That's the easiest way to do it without getting into the weeds. And then beyond that, you have to make your typeface choices. And I will say this, if you want to keep it simple and not get fancy, you've got 4 choices for your typefaces: Caslon, Garamond, Jensen, or Bembo. if you guys have never heard of these before, Caslon was invented, I want to say in the 1700s in London for like printing press stuff. Garamond, I think, was the 1500s. Jensen was like 1470. The reason I'm saying these very old serif typefaces is because for 500 years, they have been designed to be the easiest ones to read. So while you may have a great fantasy story, you don't want to put like a Germanic font as the text because it's going to tire people's eyes. And so I find it's the easiest. It's like the white canvas. You pick these very clear, easy to use typefaces. Bembo, if you want to look modern. That one I think was in the 1920s or 30s and whatever. And if you really want to wonk out, we can talk about. I've never seen old type serifs and whatever, but won't bother. Right now, you just want to get it so it's legible. And then you can play around with the display fonts. So your chapter headers. If you want to use, I don't know what the separators, that sort of thing. But for most people, I don't think you need to even worry about that unless you really want to wonk out. Like I do, but most people don't, and most people won't even notice. So it depends. I'm a perfectionist. I'm very OCD when it comes to this stuff. So I like specific things. It's like Stanley Kubrick, except for not as talented. But when you make these choices, I guess, and the hard thing to do is like to try and explain it here in just like a quick Twitter space. It's actually kind of difficult because it took me 4 years of university to get it myself. But what you're attempting to do here with this layout stuff is you're meeting industry specifications. They tell them to you. If you get them right the first time, it saves you a ton of work, especially with audiobooks. If you get a detail wrong, like they want the file name for your cover to be the title of the book. You get that one detail wrong, your book has to go back to the drawing board. That sets you back 10, 15 days. It used to be a month. So any mistake you made would cost you a month on release time, which really sucks. So you learn to get really efficient with reading the manual. And then once you get everything together, you put it all through the system, it all comes out perfectly. Everybody has a nice, easy reading experience. You get to actually start scheduling your stuff because you know you haven't made stupid, silly mistakes. And when you end up hiring people in the future, because it's a lot of work for a one-man operation, you'll at least know what standard to hold them to and know if they know what they're doing and know what questions to ask. So even if you're not going to be doing this yourself, I would suggest at least doing a test run the once. I think, what was I? Sorry, I'm checking my notes here. I had one last thing. No, actually, I think I covered it. I always feel like I'm getting rambly on these ones because I just wonk right out. And then I kind of go into that happy place. All right, I'm done.
No, it's good. There was something I was going to go back to a little bit of one of the rabbit holes we were starting to go down. Maybe font related, but I guess here broadly,
typeface, by the way, because I think what you're trying to say is typeface.
Yeah,
people use those interchangeably.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Whatever term you would like to use is fine with me. Most people, I think, are not going as far into it as you are, but you're designing an entire experience too. There's
100%
some ontological level of experiential design that's going on with your books. Whereas I think for a lot of us, like if it's like 90% of the way there for us, then that's pretty good. And here's the thing with ebooks too. So like if you're doing reflowable, you don't even have control of font. They allow the user to kind of reinterpret the text in whatever way that they choose. So it completely gets pulled out of your hands. And this is just purely playing devil's advocate and also making people aware. That's not to say that,
oh no, they do it well.
You can shirk off all those things. I like the amount of detail and consideration you're putting into these designs and stuff. The wear and tear on Softbone that makes it look that way is cool, and the first time I looked at it, I was like, wait a second, is this somebody's old copy of this? And I'm like, no, this was actually made to look this way. And that's fun. there's probably too much gray and white space out there. You know, I'm guilty of it too in general. But oh, you know what I did want to get back to? Some of the promotional stuff. But Jaji, go ahead.
Quick
Yeah.
question. I do have a place written down. You mentioned these fonts, and I found this really interesting, but I've just realized my mind is not retaining the names. Do you have a
Oh.
place written down where this? Do you have anything with like the written name of these things or something about it that you could put in the chat that I could then go look at? I don't want to take time or ask you to repeat it, but I'm interested, and I don't think I caught it quickly enough.
Well, here, I'll go write it. Let me just find where the chat thing isn't here. I mostly remember them because they're classic, but
yeah, well,
I
I'd love to look at it.
Chat part of this, I'll type it in.
Yeah, good stuff.
Sounds great. I just thought it'd be easier to look at than to try to ask you to repeat it. Thanks.
Garamond, classic favorite of mine. I'm glad it's on the good typeface list.
It's funny, my buddy Rolo, he absolutely hates it.
Oh man,
he treats it like it's vanilla pudding.
Yeah.
So we always get a little beef over that one, which is funny.
Vanilla pudding's just fine.
Here we go. So I'm typing it now. I got to mute so you guys don't hear me clacking away.
Oh, it's all good. You know, I don't consider myself to be a strong designer. Maybe sometimes I'm getting a little better here and there. If you do it enough times, hopefully some of them will be less bad. But that said, I like doing it. Whereas with audio editing, I don't like doing it. I don't like editing audio. But I'm fine at it in general, you know. It's the curse. When you guys start thinking about promotional materials, you know, I know what I do for any of my projects, like little trailers, you know, promotional copy that I'm using or reusing for whatever the purpose might be, social posts, voiceover, copy that's going out in press releases, links and things like that are going alongside all of these different releases. You know, generally speaking, I try to make a new entry on notes on my app, and then I put all the relevant information in there. Not very much like a design manual where like the fonts I'm using, I put that stuff in there. I put major colors that I'm using on the project in there. Summaries and links to commercials on different platforms or the links for distribution, whatever format that is in, whether it's like a video, an ebook, an audio book. You want to make sure that and like some of these audiobooks are going out to so many different platforms. You really have to grab all those links too. And make sure you're kind of spouting that stuff off. You do have to be pretty shameless about that, but at the same time, like people aren't going to give you extra clicks to find it on the platform that they want. You really need to like put it right in front of them. If they're like a Google user or an Apple Books user, like don't make them go have to chase it down and type stuff in. Just give them that link and put that there, and make it available for them to follow through.
There we go. I shared it with the space. You should be able to see it here.
Yeah, nice.
And yeah, this is like the same as Amazon, where if you just don't want to think about it, these are easy choices. There's alternatives, but I find for a lot of people, you got to be careful because like I'm sure you guys have all read books where you read a chapter, maybe 2 chapters, your eyes, you kind of have to rub your eyes. Maybe you've got a headache, you want to put it down. And then there's other books where you accidentally got it through it in an entire sitting and you only put it down because you had to go to bed. And you always think that's just, oh, it's because the writing is so good. And a lot of the times it's just because these older, very classic, old style typefaces are just easier on the eyes and they cause less eye strain to move across the page, or the margins and the leading and the kerning are set up properly for the least amount of eye strain, which allows people to get in that place. Like, I don't know if all of you do this, where you kind of like, you almost picture the book in your head as a play being acted out as you're reading. Maybe that's just me as a visual guy. But I find that anytime you make a choice that detracts from that flow state, you take the reader out of your book, which prevents him from understanding. And especially if you like a lot of symbolism a lot of like setups and payoffs, a bunch of Chekhov's guns in there. Any of the stuff you want to add in there, you do yourself a disservice by interrupting the reader's flow state. As far as
By
your
the way,
audio ones, I agree they're horrible. I hate the experiences too.
while we're on fonts, it occurs to me I should mention, if you're submitting, if you're not going indie, if you're going to submit, you want to make sure your font is really readable. Like I used to know an editor who would only read Times New Roman. If they sent it in anything else, he wouldn't read it. Not everybody likes the same thing, but I'm just saying that, you know, when you're sending your thing out and you want somebody to pick it up at a small press or a traditional press, you don't want them to notice it because of the font. That gets a very negative reaction from the editors. I've worked for publishers, and I can tell you, I mean, nowadays when I get something as an editor, I just automatically reformat it into the font I enjoy reading.
Right.
But you don't want to ask somebody you're sending it to do that. You know, I do that because I don't want to bother to tell people what font I like. I just do it. But a lot
Well,
of
see,
people might not.
that's a great
So I
example
thought I
too,
should
because
mention it.
they're the reader. Technically, that editor or that publisher, they're the reader.
Exactly. And you want them to notice your story. You don't want them to know to be distracted, just as you were saying. You don't want them to be distracted by how it's presented.
Yeah. Even if you got the one guy who, for some reason, Comic Sans is the thing he's hooked on, able to read through 10 pages a minute. You're like, well, it's not your place to tell them how to enjoy your book. Plus, you want something from them. Do you not want to make it easy on them?
Right.
Give them extra work. It's just like Mike was saying earlier. Why would I want to give people extra work? Because then they just won't do it, and then nobody reads the book.
When I worked at Blue Jay, which was I don't know, there's anything quite like this right now that I'm familiar with, although I'm sure they're out there. It was like a small press, but it was a solid physical book publisher in New York. They were doing high quality science fiction books in trade paper, which was new back then. So it looked elegant. And one day, I only worked there for a short time, but I worked for them for a while, but I only worked in New York for a short time. And one day, this wooden carved box with a manuscript arrived. And they didn't even want to look at it. And I asked them why, and they said things like that are always bad. That when they come in a showy form, the writing is always horrible. But so I was the intern there. You know, I was starting out, and so I said, "Oh, I'll look at it," and they were right. It was terrible.
That's so funny. When I was sailing, we used to work with a guy. His name was Weber, and he used to do that every time he got in trouble because he couldn't do his job. He would always iron his jacket on his uniform, which is so. I don't know why you got me thinking of that. It's like, oh yeah, he screwed something up. How can you tell? Oh, he's ironed his clothes really good, including the jacket, which you're not even supposed to.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, it's kind of like that. And it's, you know, and what was sad about this particular case was they didn't include a return address. So we couldn't even give them a report. I mean, even if we'd loved it, there would have been nothing we could do. But anyway, it was a lesson to me that, you know, to know colored paper. I mean, nowadays it doesn't matter because probably electronic submission, but the same effect. You don't want to have something super fancy. You want it to be easy for them to read.
100%. I think that's another thing too with the authors. I find a lot of the problem is everybody thinks of themselves as an author. Trademark, you know? I'm at the dinner parties. I've got the tweed blazer with the elbow patches. I'm a well-written blah blah blah. I'm very fancy, and they all want the prestige and the identity, but they forget, like any entertainer, you're only as good as your audience agrees you are. And so you have to really put them first as opposed to yourself, which I did not think that would be a difficult concept, but I think a lot of people fancy themselves as like, oh, I'm just a Hemingway that they haven't figured out yet. It's like, no, you're not. None of us are. Hemingway wasn't even Hemingway. They set those shots up of him with the shotgun and the pipe and the typewriter. He hated all that. So I guess there's a humility. You can't really do anything about it. You have to either have it or not have it. I wish you could tell people not to have it, but I mean, does it ever work telling a narcissist he's not a narcissist? Probably not.
I have a question, if you don't mind, about marketing, and that is, how do I or how do we, who have a variety of stuff all over the place, like, and so let me just, I have an article that just came out in a trade magazine. Okay, fine. My friend and I, my colleague in London, we've just started a podcast that's somewhere else. I have a few different things that I work with. Yes, it's all on my website. That's not, but driving traffic to website is one thing. How do I or can I make people aware of all my media, and can I tie it into either my first and or second book? That's a frustration for me right now.
Absolutely. 100%.
How do you do that?
It's a concept called funnel marketing, which a lot of people used it to sell snake oil. But if you notice, like, if you can sell nothing with this, you can sell good things with this too. And it's the idea is you got to segment. I'm going to call it content. It's not content, but it's the easiest way to frame it. You separate your content into 3 tiers: a top funnel, a middle funnel, and a bottom funnel. And each one serves a different purpose. Top funnel is name recognition, period. If you go onto my Twitter, I say some horrific and acerbic things, and it does not matter, because it is not my work. It is not my magnum opus. It is just there so you learn my name, recognize my profile picture. That's it. It's more salacious, the better. Now you can tailor that to whatever audience you want to get. In the end, some of the most popular, like Andrew Tate, I know it's a bad example. It's a good example, but it's not a popular example. He has been the Ric Flair villain of the internet for years, but everybody knew who he was. And while, 99 people out of 100 may have hated him, 1% of those people, that 1% out of 100, wanted to see more. And that's where the only thing you link from your top of the funnel is your middle of the funnel stuff. Now, your middle of the funnel, you're still not selling anything. The middle of the funnel exists to show that whatever your niche is or your specialty, that you know what you're doing. So, for example, for me, I have a YouTube channel, like 800 videos on there, where I talk about a lot of the stuff tied to my fiction and nonfiction stuff, or Substack articles, for example, as well. Every type of your content, is this about showing that I know what I'm doing, that I'm an expert, that I'm a trusted person, I'm the Walter Cronkite of X or whatever you're doing? That stuff goes there. And that's for the people that like your work. Now, of those people, maybe 99% of them will be like, yeah, I like it, but I'm not going to pay for it. But then there's that 1% that's like, dude, I would buy this in a book. I would pay for this podcast. I would, whatever it is you do, they would want it. And that's where you link them to the bottom of the funnel. And that's where all the hard sales stuff. Now, this works for 2 important reasons. The first one is, like you said, you have a podcast here, you have videos here, you have a website here, a blog here, a book here, articles here. That's a lot of stuff. How do you get people to go there? And in this case, your middle of the funnel stuff will be your email list, which if you don't have one, get one. It is techno-feudalism out there. You are essentially, like Twitter, for example, you are working for Elon. Nobody's subscribers go up. You're there to promote the platform. You're not there to promote yourself. So if you don't have an email list, you don't have control over your own audience, which is vitally important as an indie anything. That way, I'm here for just you. And then when you're doing something, you're like, hey, new podcast coming out. Check it out. Hey, new this. Check it out. So those middle funnel people will go to the bottom funnel activities. And that's why they'll be like, oh, I loved his book. Oh, I paid for his speech or his e-course or whatever it is you're ultimately selling. Goes in the bottom of the funnel. And the second benefit of this, being able to combine it all with the one commonality, which is you aren't selling to people who don't want to buy. You're not wasting your time or their time. So it shows a certain reverence and respect for the audience that they may not know they appreciate it, but they do. That's why you're not selling your book at the front page of Twitter when you're putting like goofy memes out there. Because I'm just here to laugh and have some fun on a coffee break. I'm not here to buy a book, which, sometimes we break the rule. That's fine. But ideally, that's what we're doing. And then the middle of the funnel people are like, I'm not here to watch you make fun of some whatever. I'm here because I'm really interested in the topic you're talking about. And then the people at the bottom are like, yeah, I'm here because I would love to buy this book. I'm here because I would love this. I don't want to hear you selling stuff. I don't want to hear you talking crap about somebody else. And so everybody gets to invest in you to the extent that they want to. And it's reciprocal. So those people at the top of the funnel, I have what, 22,000 followers on Twitter. 21.5 thousand of them don't care about any of my work. But that's fine because somebody who does care about my work is like, wow, 22,000 followers. That's not nothing. And then encourages them to go in. And then the 6,000 people I have on the email list are like, wow, there's a lot of people on this email list. It must be pretty popular. Maybe I'll buy the book. And so they offer a, what's the word? What's the word where the bigger you get, the more important you seem? It's like how rich people always get free stuff. I can't remember the term for it at the top of my head. But yeah, ultimately, so that's what you want, like an email list as your middle of the funnel, and then to set up a 3 funnel activity and then link from one to the next.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Very interesting. Thanks.
And here's the thing too, because you're doing all these other things, they're establishing a track record, and you're creating opportunity for yourself to create backlinks and cross promote on whatever platform you establish in those channels, for yourself. If Robin is a brand, then that brand can extend into all of those, the places where you want to put it. Have been doing very similar stuff for the last couple of years in terms of fiction, and podcasting, and this space, obviously, being able to work through ideas and talk through ideas and co-host it with Heidi and Jaji now too. They all are extending, network, but then familiarity and thinking in general, and hopefully being assets for people's work.
Well, even big picture, just a rising tide lifts all boats. Like, I can't remember, was it you, Robin, or Mike? One of you guys were talking right at the beginning about how indie publishing gets a bad rap because a lot of people make slop. So it's in everybody's best interest for every indie author to be a good indie author.
That was actually
for all of us.
That was my motivation when we did the writing course that I did with Superversive Press, which is now just sitting around because I don't have anything I can do with it at the moment. I give it away to homeschoolers, if you know any homeschoolers. But my motive was, the better we can make every indie book, the more likely people will buy our books, because there's nothing that makes you want to read another book like you just finished a good book.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that makes you want to not read like that book really sucked and I think I'll watch a movie.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many people try to gatekeep their own things. Like, even small examples. People have Twitter opinions that are kind of novel and unique, and then other people start copying them and they get mad. I'm like, bro, this is the best thing ever. You want everybody on the same page talking about the same thing. Because then, yeah, you, like you said, oh, I got through 1. Well, I'm going to want 2. Well, now I'm going to want 4. That's like how capitalism works. People want more of what's already good.
Right. And when you read a really good, romance in Scotland, you want to read another one. You read a really good, South American wrestler book, you want to read another one. You know what I mean? You get in a mood and you're like, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's got to be out there somewhere. But, you get into a mood for something, and then if there's another one, you'll pick it up. And you'll probably enjoy it, even if it's merely okay.
Yeah.
It's, like if you get a good one and the next one isn't bad, you'll enjoy it because you're in the mood for it, But if it's bad, you'll be like, oh, why did I do this? And then you just want to use your time on something other than reading.
Yeah. It's very, very, people have a very big scarcity mindset towards it. And they don't realize, like, it's books. Books are ultimately a disposable pastime. It's like McDonald's or Starbucks. You're going to have 1 coffee, you're going to have 2. You're going to. How many people brag about how big their bookshelves are? Like, tons of people. And you're mad. It's like, no, I want him to only read my stuff. It's like, dude, he will read your stuff. He'll also read other people's stuff. So maybe if you get along with all these people, you all can enrich this guy's bookshelf, and he can enrich your guys' college degree. Like,
right.
Relax.
And if those other guys are good, the chance that he's going to come back because he's still going to be reading and read your next book is up from if the other guy isn't good.
And heck, what's going to make you a better writer but having to compete with better writers? Like, there's no downside to it at all, unless you're really horrible and you're just tired of being showed up.
That is one of the things that I think is good about the traditional publishing or even small press model, is that you have to at least be good. And I mean, it's true. There are really good books that get overlooked. And I'm not saying if you don't get picked up, it means your book's bad. But the process of trying to improve your writing to get picked up was, for me, that was a really good process. Like if you read the book I first sent out and you read the book that got published, it's a night and day difference, because I had to improve as I went along. And I do think the one really downside of indie is that people can put things out there without really honing their craft. So one of the advantages of, of having to compete is, if you realize you need to hone your craft, it's, as I say, it's good for everybody.
I just feel bad. A lot of traditional publishing isn't doing that anymore. Like my friend got on to TradPub. They don't even look at your work now. I can't speak for everybody, but it's the examples that I've heard of. They look at your follower count because they don't market for you anymore. You have to market for yourself.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Which is sad because marketing is the one thing it's worth waiting for. Like, you know what I mean? I have this feeling.
Well, that's the one advantage Penguin can offer is that their logo used to mean something.
Right.
I don't think it does as much anymore.
I have this feeling that there's going to be some kind of a breakthrough in this area, but I'll tell you one reason why it doesn't mean as much. So I've worked with a bunch of small press. I've done editing for some of them, and I'm friends with some of them and things like that. And a number of them have closed and or dropped a lot of their authors. And the reason is that exactly what you're saying. In the electronic age, a person becomes a brand. And if you're gonna find things by searching, if you search you're not going to find me. If you search me, you're not going to find Michael, even if we're all at the same publisher. Yeah. And I think what's happened is that the way people find books, if it's not at the bookstore, have changed. And nobody's really figured out how to market other people because like several of the people who I've known in small press have said, look, we're doing really well selling, my books and my wife's books, but we haven't figured out how to sell other people's books, even though we really wanted to, and we really tried hard. And, I think the big publishers are also having this problem. If it's a big enough book, they put it in the bookstores and people recognize it and they pick it up. It either has, a little buzz or a good name or a really nice cover or something. They do fine with it. But if it's not that, I think they don't really know what to do either. And I'm really hoping that something, might be AI, might be a new way of doing it, somebody comes up with a method for marketing other people online. Yeah. Because a lot of writers are good at writing and best as they try, they're never going to be good at this. We can try, we can help each other.
He wrote Theft of Fire. He had the great way of putting it is that your job as an author isn't to write books. Your job as an author is to build an audience, which makes perfect sense why it would be difficult for like a publishing house to do that because you can build your own audience as a publishing house, but then why do authors want to go to you when they can build their own audience?
Before 2012, this was not the case. So when I first came to publishing, and my husband's been published since like 2001, the top editor at the time, who he happened to have, explained to us, he said, there's nothing you can do to sell books but write better books. We've tried advertising. We've tried sending people on book tours. That works for maybe if you're already really famous. But otherwise, back then, word of mouth combined with a bookstore. And the reason this is really important is because people say, oh, it's word of mouth. Well, why isn't that working now? Well, you need two things. You need the word of mouth and you need the browsing. When you were browsing at the bookstore and you'd heard about the book from a friend, you'd pick it up. But word of mouth doesn't work nearly as well online because when I go to Amazon, I often forget what my friend said. The book isn't in front of me. I don't go, oh, wait, that's the book she mentioned at the party. I go, okay, let me look up that author I really like and see if she has a new book out. So there's the old methods. It was great for writers. Being able to just write was exactly what writers need. So many writers are introverts. So many writers are not good at these other things. But that's kind of fallen apart. So what we're looking for now is, a better way to
Just
do
on
it.
demand.
But in the meantime, we've got to do what you're talking about, and which is why we're sharing all this.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's no longer. You're right. It's not one job now. It's you have to do 7 jobs, and the competition is fierce, and everybody's going to be better at you in all of those jobs, and that has to be, and that's okay. You just have to be good enough. You have to be better than good enough.
Yeah.
But, and then I know when a lot of like older, more established authors are having trouble transitioning is because they have a pride to it. At least from what I've seen, from the ones that ever having trouble, because they're like, Do you know who I am? And I don't know who they are because I'm not the most voracious reader myself, but they are a well-known author. Do you know who I am? I shouldn't have to do this. It's like, well, that's fine. But now, worst boyfriend ever, who's writing, he's probably my favorite new author right now because his marketing is just so bang on. He just plays a homeless guy
Is
in
that
his
a
van.
person? Worst boyfriend
Yeah,
ever?
worst boyfriend ever.
That's his pen name. Yeah, worst boyfriend ever.
He
I
has a
haven't heard of
van.
him, but
He
it's as
cheats
you
on his
say.
girlfriend with
Oh.
Asian girls in San Francisco and just drives around. It's like very Bukowski, degenerate, delicious tacos all put into one. And it's just so funny because his marketing is spot on. He just gets a bunch of girls to yell at him, like, I hate him. I hate how he treats women. I hate how this comes. And then the other half of it is girls is like, hey, can I get a picture inside the van with you? Can I visit you when you visit? And it's just
I can see
funny.
why the marketing is great. Because as you say, the marketing is not the same as virtue.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And but you read it,
It's really
and it's
fun.
got this like very generation Zoomer, like a classic author would look at this like, what is this horse shit? Who's reading this? But like when you buy into his brand, you buy it because you like him, and if anything,
Right.
you almost adopt how you read his writing style.
You buy it
adopting
because you
his
like
writing
him,
style to
or
well
you
written.
buy it because you're hate reading one or the other. And either way, he
Oh,
makes
yeah.
he makes good with it.
I guarantee, like the people that hate, I've always said you need haters because haters will retweet and like and comment on everything you do. Meanwhile, your most diehard fans will occasionally like something you put out. So it's like, it's not
I
even
have
close.
noticed that several of my friends who've gone on to do very well have done it because there was a huge attack on them. And
Yeah.
you can't set something like that up. I'm sure if you did, it would go badly. But it happens sometimes, and sometimes it just lifts the person to a higher level. You know.
Oh yeah, because I mean, everything's about in groups and out groups now. We're all balkanized. So if somebody hates you, like I'm just going to pick example, like say some feminist with a huge brand attacks me because she hates my stuff. You're a man, you're an idiot, whatever. Oh my god, that's horrible. But then I realized like there's a lot of people that really hate her,
Right.
and so
And they're
they
going to
might
come look
buy
you up.
me just to spite her, and they'll look me up, and then some of them will stick around as fans. And sometimes it's a one-time buy. It's parasitic almost in a way. It's just so weird how it happens organically. Like you figure more people would do the kayfabe thing, like wrestling. I'll be the heel and you be the baby face, and I'll shit on you and you shit on me, and then we can. It just doesn't. It for some reason people don't have that level of coordination.
I've wondered about that actually. But on a slightly related topic, one thing I've noticed is that I used to, because I was working in and out of the field, and I used to follow like Locust Magazine and the other publishing things that were big at the time. And because of that, I knew all the authors' names. Like if I hadn't met them in science fiction and fantasy publishing, I knew them, or I knew their books, or I knew how they were doing and things like that. You can't do that anymore. Not only can you not do that, it's almost difficult to find out who the best-selling authors are. Like, you'll be going along and you suddenly find out there's another genre, let's say, lit RPG, or, all sorts of different things come along. And in that genre, people are selling extraordinarily well. And there isn't anything like Locus, which used to cover the whole field, that lets you know who the great selling. I was thinking about this when you were talking about, don't you know who I am? Well, the truth is now that for all those guys who were big, there's guys way outselling them, but because they're not in the bookstore, they're not in front of you. Nobody even knows who they are. I remember when Wool first came big, or like the guy was enormous, but the average reader I ran into had never heard of him. So that's another thing that's going on, is that the field is really fragmented, and it's hard to figure out. There's no real simple place to go to look to see, like, what genre is doing really well today, or who are the top selling authors today, or anything like that. There are things like
you have to
New
hyper
York
niche.
Times, but New York Times lists and stuff is it's not actually reporting what's the what's going on. So anyway.
Like, I wish I had saved it. The perfect example, when I did Softbone, I checked out what were the top 100 in Cyberpunk. And this first one is this guy who wrote Lit RPG, nothing to do with Cyberpunk. I click on his thing. He comes out with like 14 books in 2 years. I know they're mostly AI generated. Started going down the rabbit hole. He's on Royal Road, which I guess they write serialized fiction there for subscriptions, which I'm like, that's crazy. And then he has a Patreon. This guy, I've never heard of him. I've never even heard of this genre. He makes 80 grand a month just on Patreon, offering advanced copies of the stuff he puts onto Royal Road, which he eventually compiles and put into Amazon. And all three of them are in like the top 100 of this random genre I've never heard of. And he's making like more money than sports athletes.
So Lit RPG is one of the best selling genres out there in our field. I don't know of outside of fantasy and science fiction. And yeah, you never hear about it if you're not looking for it. I never see it advertised. I only know about it because I know people who write it. And it falls know about it
because he took the first 20 spots at the top 100.
Yeah. And so it falls into the category that I've mentioned before of if it's a subject that truck drivers like to listen to, it sells really well.
Oh.
Because truck drivers use audiobooks, and one of the things they like is stuff like Lit RPG and military SF and stuff like that. It's one of the reasons those guys do well.
Shout out Graham.
And Royal Road is interesting. I've some friends who are doing really well there, but what they do is it puts it up for free. But if you have a Patreon, you can send the people who want to read more to Patreon, and that's how you get your money from it.
Partially.
Here we go. I found the guy. His name is Zogarth. See what I mean? Like, there's nothing like Zogarth. Who's a Zogarth? He makes more money than the president. That's who. And he writes worse than you, Mr. Hemingway 2.0. How does that make you feel? People get mad at this stuff too, and I'm like, no, man, this is an inspiration. If he can make it, you can make it. All of us can make it.
Ricky's trying it out. He used to hang out with us in the summer, but he started working on some new projects. But he got into Royal Road this year. I don't know that it's taken off to that level, but he writes incredibly long, dense fantasy fiction material. And he just has this massive back catalog. Royal Road, for him to build up an audience and potentially leverage into, whatever point of sale he chooses, makes a lot of sense for him because he has so much material to publish there.
Yeah, like I'm playing with it too. But I mean, you got to do that too. You always got to, because nobody knows what they're doing. So A/B test. Somebody said Royal Road. I'll try Royal Road out. Put some feelers out. It's kind of how you do your business anyway, at least how I have. You try 20 new things a year. And then 6 months to a year later, you see which ones are doing well and which ones are doing badly. And you cut the bad ones and keep the good ones and repeat the process until you're earning enough money to pay the mortgage. Then go play with your kids. Don't have any pride about it. Well, this isn't traditional publishing. This is Royal Road. And I'm like, is this any different than those 1980s like pulp newsletter ad busters type punk publishing that you used to see back in the day? Probably not. It's just a digital version of it. So
yeah, it's a lot like Wattpad, which does something similar, except Royal Road seems to be more like fantasy science fiction. But there are a number of books that have been picked up from Wattpad or from Royal Road by a big publisher because they have, millions of downloads or something,
Yeah, and you don't even have to use it as a money-making thing. This can, like, for me, when I'm just using it as a funnel, so people learn who I am. I'm not expecting anything out of it. Substack was the same way. It started making money, and I just went with it. I switched it from the top to the bottom of the funnel. But a lot of times, like, it's the hardest part of being a writer is getting people to learn your damn name.
Yeah.
Should be on every niche one. Plus, it's like it's an electronic book. You can upload it everywhere at once. It's not like the old days where you had to buy
right. Yeah, exactly.
500 envelopes, send $100 in shipping to get anything anywhere. No, just start uploading.
Yeah. So Royal Road's out there, Wattpad's out there. There's probably other things like that. I know some people who are putting their books out on Substack. Because you can have free Substack. You can have, and I only just found out recently, you can have more than one level of Substack where I signed up for a friend's thing because he was doing some really interesting publishing information. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to actually subscribe and so I'm paying the basic. And then there's an inner circle. You have to pay more to get the rest of the information. But I didn't even know you could do that. And I've been on Substack for a while. I run several of them.
Took me forever just to get a second Substack for my workshops versus my like writing. They really do not make it easy on you to learn their system. They really need to get some kind of Apple guy from Apple doing the UX design for this thing. It would make them so much money.
I have 5 Substacks, and I just use them for different things. 2 of them are just basically my newsletter, because I had been on MailChimp, and I was paying money every month. I was paying more money than I was making, with it. But in Substack, I can do the same thing, also post it online, and it's free. And occasionally I make money. So,
yeah, it was definitely
some of my Substacks make money, so.
And unlike Amazon, they actually let you have control of your audience. Like you can download your email list at any time, which if you haven't done this, do it. Because I don't know how they work.
That's a good point, because originally I had uploaded it, but there's more now. So I should download and get the recent ones. If anyone is not familiar with Substack, it's kind of like a mixture between a blog and a newsletter. And it's extraordinarily simple in what you can do. Like you can't even center a headline.
It does even more than that, though. You can do podcasts on there. It has a timeline now for social network.
Yeah, you do podcasts and videos, and you can center it if you turn it into a picture. But it's really easy to use. I find it easier to use than my WordPress website. I've been using it instead of that, and I only put very few things on my website.
For sure,
I put things on my website that I want to permanently be able to link to and bring people back to, because the Substack goes down, 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 and it's hard to find.
Right.
Well, that's important too, because they have you won't have SEO. Your Substack is not visible. It doesn't have a robots text or anything. So if you want stuff that's able to be viewed by Google searching or AdSense, you're going to want to have it on your website as well.
Yeah. So it's good, but these are all good things for people to know, and each one's different. And I know there are other things out there that you can use, but one of the reason that not quite a few people came to Substack that I knew was that they were not kicking people off for politics.
Yeah.
Like quite a few places, friends of mine had got kicked off, and not for saying something outrageous. Usually it was for saying something that everyone thought was fine last year when they wrote it. And now suddenly they don't think it's fine, and they're getting kicked off when there wasn't anything wrong when they wrote it. So Substack seems to do that less. So it's been a place a lot of people have been enjoying.
They'll switch over. All social media does. And that's why I'd say to download it, because there's going to be a point where they do enough VC runs that they're able to be sustainable. Maybe they have an IPO. And at that point, the hammer's coming down. And so if you aren't downloading your email list on a regular basis, the chances are this happens. You didn't pay attention to the news this week. They got an IPO offering. Now they're going to start canceling all the people with controversial opinions, and they lock you out. So you lose your list. It's like Amazon. Amazon, you'll never know who buys your book on Amazon. They won't tell you.
I would say that's one of the worst things about working with Amazon is that, when I went 3 years before my next book came out, because my mom died, among other things, there was no real way to let the people who'd read the previous books know.
Yeah, and I figured they would do a pay to play. Hey, people who bought my other book, here's my ad spend, show it to them. They don't even give you that, which I thought was like the most no-brainer thing.
Yeah, they do occasionally. Like I'll get an email sometimes from them advertising my own book, you know what I mean? But because I bought one once.
Nice.
for some friend or something. But there's a lot of ways they could work with us better. There's a number of things that Amazon could do that would just be so much more useful for their audience that they just don't do.
Yeah, I do find it funny though that they're like horrible for all these reasons, but they're still the best of worst options, which is so.
They are. I mean, they're great in many ways, or I should say, they have a nice way of putting your book to make it available, but they're not really any help in marketing it.
Yeah, I agree.
And that
they got market share and that moat around the Kobo or around the Kindle.
I mean, I remember a time where if you bought an Amazon ad and you paid, like I'm going to set it so it doesn't go over $1 per click or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
you could make money with that. And now, because people out there put in $10,000 or what, I mean, because there's people out there spending a lot on advertising, I have not found it to be helpful in the last few years.
I
But
agree.
it
It's
used to
like
be.
throwing money into a hole.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's all of them.
And
Everybody, YouTube, same way.
yeah, and I think it's because, of course, in let's say 2012, 2013, they had, X number of books, and now they have like, X times a million number of books.
Yeah. But again,
So
it's
they
shifts,
don't know
right?
what to
So
do.
you got to work with it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're kind of on our own. Amazon's not going to. I mean, they're nice for putting the book out, but they're not going to help us.
By the way, I love how we've been talking about books for like an hour and a half now. We haven't mentioned one like sentence at all, but about everything but writing the book, and it's all like the super important stuff. Oh yeah, read a book.
This particular workshop is really about here's what we've been doing over the course of this year to bring you up to speed, because this is the first time you've been in here. We've been kind of going over the arc of creating your ideas and putting them together into a book over the course of this year. So early on in the year, we were really in the ideation, starting to write side of things, and now we're getting into like the packaging side and like getting it out the door, and like what happens at that phase of things.
That's too bad. I found it almost poetic in that like you're showing the most important stuff, and then by the way, get your book done.
Yeah. No, well, that's the thing for folks that have tuned in over the course of the year. We've talked, we do this every week. So topically getting stuff kind of coupled together, this made sense at this point in time. I think last year I did a layout design discussion, and it was like in August, which it was just Phil at that point in time. But this time we kind of had this plan for the whole year. So it fell at this point because next we'll be talking about like actual marketing stuff. And then, more broadly going to market, and then generally being an author and why that's different than being a writer. And I think we talked about some of that earlier too. I mean, these themes, they kind of come up repeatedly or in phases as you're working through a project. And then if you get to the point where you have one title out, well, what's the next thing you need to do is write another and get a catalog of stuff out and do some of that A/B testing. It's like, well, which ones worked better than the other ones, and maybe do some more material like that until you've got a corral of books that are or media projects. I make movies too, so whether it's like audio stuff, print, film, a little bit of music here and there. I mean, you can spin these projects up and get them out the door, find places for distribution, and the mechanisms for promotion, whether it's a book or a film or music or whatever it is, audio book, they all resemble the same playbook. In that sense, you have to do a lot of the same things to get them to market and get people to know about their availability.
Yeah. Well, even just from a risk perspective, if I just do YouTube videos or I just do books and I just release on Amazon, I don't do anything, I'm at the mercy of Amazon. They make one algorithm change, I'm dead in the water. YouTube cancels my channel because I had a political opinion that was different from last year's political opinion. I'm dead in the water. So the more control I have over marketing or how I get my eyeballs to there, I become platform agnostic. So Amazon, Substack, any one of these 10 places can shut me down tomorrow, and it's not going to kill me. Most people don't think about it that way, but you really should, because you've already seen it. You can't trust Twitter. You can't trust Substack. You can't trust Inkscape. You can't trust Royal Roads. You can't trust any of them, because at some point they're going to make a decision that affects your bottom line. And if they're your sole source of income, you're not even a businessman. You're in a techno fiefdom as a serf. And then you're going to be screwed. And then what are you going to do? You're going to panic. You're going to start having fights with your wife. It's like, why are you doing all this? Why didn't you just plan it out better? Diversify your stuff. Keep local control of your audience that you like. So that way, if one of these guys, like if Substack craps the bed tomorrow, I guarantee you in 6 months, there's going to be a new blogging newsletter platform out there.
Everybody just goes back to Medium.
Yeah. You become medium agnostic. And then no matter what happens out there, you're able to survive.
I must describe Substack as Medium meets newsletter.
Yeah. I like it. It's a good one. Oh yeah, I forgot about Medium. See, I didn't even remember that. It's like dating sites. Like, is anybody using OkCupid? They're like, whatever, boomer. Like, damn it. But yeah, the landscape changes constantly. And you see the most frivolous reasons that they get rid of people.
And it can even not be a decision. You're talking about the decisions, which I completely agree. You're right on. But some of the algorithm changes are being done by AI or by it's not being done because somebody's saying, hey, I don't like this guy, I don't like his opinion. You go from being visible to non-visible because of something that's merely electrons moving somewhere and doesn't really have anybody deliberately doing it, if you understand what I mean.
And so you have to do a threat risk analysis, an HDRA, harmonized one, and go through this stuff. Like case in point, the Charlie Kirk assassination, murder, whatever you want to call it. My Amazon sales dropped like a rock for like the 3 weeks after that because everybody was hyper focused on that and nobody was reading books. Like that's a risk you have to account for.
People and there's nothing a person can do.
Yeah,
there's nothing a person can do about the fact that something happens and people are drawn to their real life for a little while. It's just there's nothing you can do about that. You just got to wait it out.
Well, but that's the thing. You can always plan, you can mitigate against this stuff. That's why, like in the military, it was communications, but a lot of cryptography and stuff too. And corporate wise, I was also working as information security. You kind of want to have at least a napkin math version of a threat and risk assessment. You take everything you have and treat them as assets. And then you think of what's the worst thing? What are the things that can happen to them? Like you said, Amazon does a change. And then you put, what's the likelihood of this happening? What's the potential damage that it'll happen? And then what can I do to mitigate against that? And then you put this stuff all on a giant sheet, all of your assets, my books, my podcast, whatever. These are the threats. These are their likelihoods. This is the potential damage they do. You can do it in like a 1 to 5 scale. It really doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. And then you see every mitigation action you can take. And some of them are expensive. Some of them are cheap. Some of them are just about changing behavior. And then you can almost figure out like by the dollar, what actions that you take are beneficial for you as a business and which aren't. And so you end up what they call is a risk tolerance level, a cost per risk tolerance number. And if you think about this stuff this way, anytime something bad happens, first off, you're more confident because you've mitigated against any known or unknown threat that could affect your bottom line. B, you have mitigation strategies that are already in place. C, you know how much it's going to cost you. And D, because you knew how much it was going to cost you, you probably saved something from your initial sales to have that there as your little war chest just in case. And so like these little levels of preparation will help you on the downtimes because there's always going to be downtimes. Even if it's not the algorithm change or somebody's headline taking all the things, sometimes you're just going to have down months. The economy's gone to crap right now. Canada's 13 years into our lost decade. Like you have to plan for this stuff. Mm-hmm. And you may not have the right answer, but at least having an answer puts you in a better position than just riding the wave of the world to see what happens. And I think this is one of those really under talked about ones because a lot of content creators, for lack of a better word, aren't very business minded about this. But yeah, because I remember, you guys remember, do you know who Stefan Molyneux is?
I mean, generally.
Yes.
Okay. He was big on mail lists. Get your email list because, YouTube can cancel you at any time. He got knocked off of YouTube because of his controversy. I'm like, oh, you better get an email thing. And then I think it was MailChimp actually booted him off of there because somebody complained to it on Twitter. And I'm like, oh, mail isn't even safe now. And so that was the reason that I moved over to Substack because there was a cost attached. I was using MailerLite at the time, but the whole benefit of your email list is that you can't get kicked off of an email list, but apparently you can. So then you go to Substack. Why? Because they're new. So that was my mitigation strategy. Did I lose a couple of subscribers from this, from the different format? Probably. You're going to lose some anytime you do a migration. But then on the off chance that somebody tries to get my email account, MailerLite or MailChimp, whatever, canceled, then I have this one here. I kept them both in parallel for 6 months to ride it out and then swapped it over. And then that $6,000 a month I was saving, or $6,000 a year, sorry, I was saving in emailing fees. That becomes my nest egg in case something happens on Substack and I get canceled from there. And I know it's like a weird way to look at it, but anytime you look at it, you got to think of like, I'm in enemy territory. Everybody who moderates and admins and runs Substack hates me. They hate my content. They want an excuse to kick me off. Now that I know that, and I still want to have a business here, what do I do?
Or even
And
things like when I joined Substack, there was a button that would automatically post on Twitter whatever you did. And then Twitter got into a fight with Substack.
oh yeah, great example. Yeah.
And that's not even Substack doing anything on purpose, but they got rid of their, and not that you can't still, post it, but Twitter tends to downplay Substack links, because of this
I think they
argument
just
between
changed
them.
that today, actually. I think they did.
Oh, that would
I
be great
have
because
to test it still, but they said they did.
I hope so, because it was Elon Musk thought that the new notes thing on Substack, which is a little bit like Twitter, was going to be a competition, but it really isn't. Substack runs in a different way. And, some of the people who were working with Elon who had Substack as their main income ended up kind of breaking with him, which I thought was just, I think that was, I really, really delighted with what Elon Musk has done in getting Twitter and allowing, more free speech. But I thought that was just a misstep on his part, that whole thing with Substack, because I think they work together well. And, so you can't control, as you say, maybe it's your opinion. In this case, it was someone else's opinion that just made it harder to do these things.
And and the internet's been around long enough now. We have examples of any risk you can think of happening. Somebody's had it happen. Somebody has been canceled for a bad opinion. Somebody has been kicked off a platform. Somebody has had their banking debanking. So like all the threats are out there and are known now. So go back and look at the worst guys, the Milo Yiannopoulos, the Mike Cernoviches, the Stefan Molyneux, all the people that got treated the worst in the last 20 years of social media. They are your like greatest resources on how to ensure longevity. Like, don't make the mistakes they made. Account for the things that happen to them in case they happen to you, and you'll be fine. Like, you know how bad you have to be worse than Milo Yiannopoulos? You have to be pretty bad. So even then, I can handle it if I was that bad, but I'm not, and I'll be fine. Then I can just focus, and then you do all this work, you end up, now I can write. That whole goal at the beginning, I just want to write. All right, well, get your job sorted out, and then you can write.
I like Milo Yiannopoulos. He wrote a forward for us for a anthology that
Really?
hit Amazon at the very moment that that he got canceled. So we made, these science fiction fantasy anthologies, you're lucky if you make $100. We made a couple $1,000s each short story in that anthology because everybody went looking for his book that wasn't available yet, found his name as the forward of our book and bought it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I was very grateful to him.
Damn you, Bill Maher. Why'd you have to take him so young? But yeah, all the stuff is known. Ryan Holiday is actually great. If you guys really want to see like the business side of this stuff, not you guys, the audience, but Ryan Holiday has a book. Trust me, I'm lying. Confessions of a Media Manipulator, and it kind of really shows you how the process works, how the sausage is made, and it really will change how you approach this as a business. Even though a lot of the stuff is outdated now, like the landscape has changed, like the concepts still seem pretty good. And I'm assuming in the next 20 years, this might be codified. They'll probably have a university course on how to be a lying grifter online.
Someday we'll figure out how to sell books without being lying grifters, but it's hard. It's hard.
I mean, just don't lie. You do the same things they do. Just don't lie.
Yeah. Exactly. You got to present yourself. You got to be smart about it, but you got to be straightforward. I think,
Guy Fieri is my hero for that. Guy Fieri, if he loved something in his little drivers and dine-ins thing, he would say, "This food is great." And if he didn't like it, he would just describe what he was eating, like, "Oh, that's a lot of flavor." Which I thought was great.
That's decent. That's decent. Because I have a number of friends who use the burning both ends method of causing controversy to sell books.
Mm-hmm.
And it flares really bright and they tend to do well for a time. And then they tend to not do as well. I mean, I'm talking now over about 10, 15 years. Because they burn bridges. And when they burn bridges, other people don't want to work with them. So it's a little controversy is great and can really, as we mentioned earlier, can really sell a book. But
not to the
if
point
you
of
start
alienating everybody.
attacking people who are basically in the same group you're in order to get get that kind of attention, sooner or later you end up with now of the authors I work with, I don't know, there's like 5 or 10 of them who won't work with each other, and it makes it difficult. And I think as I say, it's a short term success thing, but it's not really a long term success thing.
Yeah, once you cross that line, you should really get those friends of yours to watch WrestleMania 7, Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior. It was the best. It's babyface versus babyface. I think once they understand a lot of these beefs are kind of like, they're not real beefs. It's all kayfabe, or maybe they really mean it. I don't know.
Well, that's part of the problem is that, you can have these fake things, but when somebody comes away feeling that their family or their religion have been attacked, they become sincerely upset. And that's what I've run into among other authors in the field, that some of them really feel that one of the other guys attacked them in a way they feel they can't forget. If it's just for fun, then they just kind of shake hands behind scenes, but enough of them have actually, said something the other one took to be a serious attack that now they won't work with that guy.
See, my inner millennial is coming out, where like my Xbox 360 years, I've been called a homosexual more times than any man deserves. But I don't know how to say this, but it's like, it's the internet, harden the fuck up. And I don't mean that as an insulting way. I mean, like, literally you have to. It's like, don't take it personally. It's just the job. This is why I agree. Everybody should have a pen name, because to separate your career and your brand from you as a person, I think is important.
Yeah. And in some of these cases, I completely understand why the person's offended. In other cases, I really don't understand why they don't just put it aside. And some of them I say are legit, that the offense was something where I have sympathy for that they feel this is too much, a bridge too far. But it makes it hard. It makes it hard to work together and to help each other if people have used these, exploding methods to get attention, and then they back.
Do they ever apologize? Like, there's been times where in my own opinion, I cross a line. I usually go to the person. I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. I was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
I would say,
is there no humility in this involved, or is it just?
So I'm talking now about a group of people. I'm not talking about any one person. Some of them have apologized, and the apologies were not accepted. Sometimes they apologize and they get along in the future. Some of them won't apologize. So it goes across the board. And I don't want to emphasize that, because if there's anybody who listens to this who thinks they know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, who are you talking about, Jaji?
It may not be at all, because I'm
names
thinking
and their
of
home addresses. No, all of them.
But his name rhymes with Stephen Ring. No.
I'm summing up from about 10 or 15 years. So, as I say, I'm not pointing a finger at any one person. Okay. I can think of 2 or 3 people for each thing I've said.
Who are the 2 or 3 people you're thinking of for each thing relevant to this year?
I'm not going to try to make things worse. These are all people I really like.
It's fine.
I guess I have a hard time taking it personally, because I can have a personal grudge, and I can think somebody crossed the line. Like, people said some horrific things to me, and I've said horrific things otherwise. But at the same time, is my feeling or my sense of dignity or whatever you want to call it, is that worth me not having a successful business? And to me, my answer is no. The only thing I really worry about is, like, can I trust somebody?
I think we can add this to the list of things outside your control, like getting kicked off for something you say, is that some people have a very business-like approach, and some people, wrongly or rightly, because, each case is different, feel like they can't do this or that, the other thing. And that limits what we can do. If you're like, let's get these 10 people together and we could all sell this book better. And then, no, we can only get 4 of them together. It's just one more thing, one more reality of having to deal with the world here.
Pride, like, have a dollar amount attached to your pride. You know what I mean? Like, the sales that you've lost there. Oh, it's about 10 grand in sales. Well, that's how much I hate this guy. Well, for example,
I
Brutal.
think
when I
it's
first
if
started,
it's pride, that's one thing. In some cases, it's somebody feels they've been betrayed, in which case it's I can't trust that person.
yeah,
And then
well,
I think
trust
you
is
have a
totally
lot
different
more
thing. Trust.
respect for, if I can't trust that person, well, okay, I'm not going to ask you to do that. I understand that,
Because
Fair
obviously
and
the trust thing I
reasonable.
agree with.
Hold on here a second. Before we continue on with sacred trust falls here together in the
Get
writing
back to-
space, we're going to actually wrap it up for today. We usually stop on the hour. So any final thoughts from folks on stage in regards to design, branding, promotion of our books, layout, any maybe summation of the points you felt were really important that you said, anything along those lines? This is your chance.
I'll go
I didn't
first.
realize we were running out of time. I
We
meant to
are.
ask
Yeah,
the
it's
other
okay.
people to
Yeah.
say what they were up to. Sorry.
But yeah, well, take your ego out of it, take your feelings out of it. Every part of the process is a problem to be solved. Don't worry about if you like it. Don't worry about if it appeals to your sensibilities. Don't worry about your ego. Don't worry about embarrassment. You're trying to solve a problem. And ultimately, what you want to do is you want to give people books that want to read them. Break it down, systematize it, understand that your job is no longer as a writer. Your job is a marketer. Your job is a desktop publisher. Your job is a writer. Your job is, to create beef. Your problem is to swallow your pride if somebody insults your wife's honor because, I can actually pay off the mortgage. I'm pretty sure my wife will care about that more than if some random whoever called her fat 7 years ago. You know what I mean?
But
And if
I'll
you can
say,
treat it like a
Sure.
job, I think you'll do far better than if you treat it like an extension of an ego.
I completely agree with that. I will say, as far as layouts, that the old thing we used to say in the old days still carries up forth, which is go out and look at books, however you read them, if it's paper or if it's ebooks. See what you like, see what's comfortable, and then when you go to do your layouts or you go to get someone to do layout for you, keep in mind what made it easy for you to read. So don't think about it in terms of what's pretty, or think about it in terms of, I really enjoy reading this book. It was, it was on this kind of paper. It had this kind of sizing. It had this kind of binding, or it was, it was an ebook and it had, had the pictures laid out in this way or whatever, it's kind of, if you look either yourself in your own reading or you ask a few friends who read and you make a little notice of what is easy and fun and enjoyable and pleasant to read, that's a good way to tell what maybe should be done. Fair,
Reasonable. Jaji, I have a question for you. Are you here next week for Tuesday on the 28th?
I am. I will not be here the 4th because it's election day, but I will be here. I will be here next week.
Perfect. Then we're going to be doing anticipation.
That's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, this was one of your favorites, and I wanted to make sure that we had it dialed in for when you'd be here.
Excellent. I think that is the entire key to getting people to continue reading. So I'll be delighted to talk about it.
Well, then next week we'll be talking about anticipation while we have Heidi still out. She's going to be out one more week. Then I think she'll be back. Nope. 2 more weeks, then she'll be back. No, I'm looking at the wrong space. Let's see. Just for the Heidi listeners out there. Oh, Heidi is out on the 4th as well. So
Ryan, maybe you can help Michael on the 4th because I work election day here in my local county.
Who knows? We're not gonna sweat about it too much right now. If both of you guys are out, maybe we'll just call off for that day and bump that one forward.
We could do that too. We could do that and just all meet again on the one after the 4th.
Yeah. But for next week, anticipation, we'll be back here. Follow me. I'll be scheduling it. That way you can turn on the RSVP. Ryan, obviously, you're welcome to come back and hang out anytime you want.
For sure, a schedule permits. This is fun. I just feel bad. I occupy too much of the mic.
You didn't
want to be.
No, that was what we were hoping for.
Yeah. No, it was good.
I could tell when we talked about it that you really knew this stuff, and that's what we wanted to put out. And it's not. I feel it was my strong point, so I kind of wanted you to talk for a while.
That's exactly why I reached out to you to come in and do this space because
this guy knows how to talk. Let him run his mouth. fill the air.
Well, no, not that you know how to talk, but you knew what you were talking about. That was the valuable part. Exactly. And then when we did the planning session last week, you knew what you were talking about. So it's no fear or concern, like you're, good panelist.
Oh, it's just nice to talk to other people who go through the same stuff and know what they're talking about too. It's so rare.
Well,
so rare.
I'm a hack at it, but I'm trying. So
I really appreciate you both and everybody who came, and Robin, thank you guys.
Yeah. And we'll be back next week. So look for me to schedule that. I think I'll probably put it up there on Thursday after Jaji and I do the planning session. So,
and I'm available on Thursday. Are we going with 2:00?
Yeah, that'll work.
Excellent. I'll see you then.
Perfect. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk again before too long.